Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Weaver. Welcome to The Audio Analyst. For 3 decades now, David MacPherson, the managing partner of Studio Electric, has been building remarkable sounding and relatively affordable loudspeakers. One of his underlying goals as a designer has been to create loudspeakers that not only he would choose to own, but that fall into his own budgetary choice for such purchases. Now, I first met him and had the opportunity to hear his remarkable work in January 2006. With his first presentation at CES that year, he showed something extraordinarily special: his $7,950 pair of Studio Electric Model 1 loudspeakers. I initially thought they looked like Buck Rogers going deep sea diving. The Model 1's spherical enclosures were fabricated for Studio Electric by Electron Love's Josh Stippage. The long, receding cones housing the dome tweeters mounted atop the chromed 8-gauge stainless spheres that accommodated the 8-inch woofers combined to make those some of the most striking-looking and engaging sounding speakers I encountered at that year's event. The Art Deco-looking Model 1s were paired with and rested atop their complimentary $3,750 pair of his XLR8 columnar subwoofers, featuring integral DSP, which were finished in a beautiful ebony enclosure. Though optional, their operational range of 20 to 65 Hertz, the XLR8s added both musically significant spatial information and a substantial measure of authority to the music when engaged. Now, back then, Studio Electric's base was in Salt Lake City, Utah, but circumstances saw David's relocation to Holland, Michigan several years ago. As such, we are now separated by just about 120 miles, or a 2-ish hour drive. This newfound relative proximity is what led to David reaching out and offering to deliver the M5s for review. Now, the current Studio Electric lineup includes a 2-way monitor, the M4, which I also love, and had its genesis as the Pasadena monitor at CES 2010. The 3-way stand mount under consideration here, the M5, and the FSX, a floor-standing 3-way which also employs an 8-inch passive radiator. The M5 is a striking-looking acoustic suspension design, featuring a 1-inch soft dome SB Acoustics tweeter, vertically aligned just above its bespoke 6.5-inch copolymer mid-range driver, with a 2-inch diameter voice coil mounted in its own critically sized sealed chamber. Both drivers sit above and are aligned slightly off-center to the outside of the center line of each speaker's SB Acoustics 10-inch gel-coated paper woofer, making for a mirror-imaged pair. Crossover points come at 3100 Hz for the tweeter mid-bass flex point, and the mid-range runs down unfiltered to its natural mechanical roll-off frequency based on its specific volume loading. The 10-inch SB Acoustics woofer sees a low-pass filter that allows it to run from 55 Hz down to its natural mechanical roll-off as well. Overall, this is a somewhat unique yet extremely effective approach. The result is that the M5 offers a 4-ohm nominal impedance with a sensitivity of 89 decibels. Standing 2 feet tall, 14 inches wide, and just under 14 inches deep without the stands, each beautiful hardwood veneered finished HDF MDF enclosure tips the scale at just 55 pounds. Pricing ranges from $6,700 to $7,100 a pair, depending on finish. Based solely on the appearances, you may initially be tempted to assume that their sonic signature may be aligned with that of some similar-looking, well-regarded UK designs like those from Spender or Harbeth. But let me assure you, the M5s sound nothing like those products, at least not to my ears. I will openly admit that I find very little appeal from such UK designs, and for many reasons. But let's get into what the M5 brings to the party. When David made the trip to my home here in north central Indiana, he was curious to hear how the M5s would fare when taking the place of my von Schweikert Audio Ultra 9s. So, with the invaluable assistance of my audio pal Randy, David was recovering from surgery and was prohibited from heavy lifting, we schlepped the M5s down into my primary music room. Now, I lived with them here, hitched to my reference sources, electronics, accessories, and cabling, all of which amounted to something on the order of more than 100 times the cost of the M5s themselves. And while they performed admirably, they really weren't suited to the task of fronting such an otherwise ambitious system. So after some 20-odd hours of run-in and auditioning, I transplanted them to my second space system, where they lived for a few months, fed by vinyl, digital, and video sources, and where they managed to effortlessly earn my admiration and respect. You may see all the details of my second space system at my companion website, and I have included a link to that page in today's description. I think you will be as impressed as I have been with their extension at both extremes, their balance, and in particular, their tonal fidelity and broadband coherence. Listening to the piano from Fantasy Impromptu, from Horowitz, The Last Recording, though presented slightly smaller and more constricted in three-dimensional space, the presentation was very nicely conveyed in terms of the warmth, body, bloom, and the insightful magic of the performance. The timbre and luster of the piano was presented remarkably accurately, and with the kind of involvement one would typically associate only with much higher-priced speakers. Overall, they deliver a level of creamy, rich, and vibrant tonality that is utterly addictive. Add to this their remarkable ability to fluently blend the contributions from its three drivers, and you will begin to understand how well its driver complement and dividing network have been implemented and executed. With the John Williams Yo-Yo Ma collaboration on the 7 Years in Tibet soundtrack, the M5s recreated a strikingly authentic impression of the heft of the lowest frequencies, even though they could not completely excavate the nethermost depths of the recording on their own. Adding the contributions of my very affordable stereo subwoofers in this space really provided the finishing touch to the overall scaling abilities and contributions of the M5s. The glimpse into the soundstage, though incredibly insightful, extending well beyond the width of their placement, was also just a bit shallower than I have come to expect, with a slightly more forward presentation than is faithful, perhaps due to the effect of their relatively wide front baffle and hard right-angled enclosure boundaries. Cue sound effects, precise staging cues, and instrumental sizes and voice shapes, while very competently presented, were a bit reserved for my tastes when compared and contrasted to the accomplishments of my reference rig here. And again, the addition of my absurdly affordable vintage subwoofers in this second space contributed nicely to counter this slight deficit. But it is important to note that Yo-Yo Ma's cello was surprisingly detailed, as were the rest of the mid-range voices presented with this and other recordings. This speaks to one of the M5's unequivocal strengths. It's exceptionally well-articulated, super fast, extremely resolute and accurate presentation, especially evident from its bespoke mid-range driver. The M5 also presents a realistic interpretation of the uppermost frequencies, with just a hint of restriction to an otherwise unfettered extension, an attribute I find to be a common limitation of all the very best silk, linen, or other textile soft domes. But given their price point and the heroic performance David manages to persuade from this SB Acoustics tweeter, that of its purity, its speed, and its convincing openness. This slight limitation, especially in light of the ease, vitality, and manifest naturalness with which they impart this frequency region, may well be seen as venial. All of this serves to reinforce my earlier observations that these carefully crafted, simply beautiful-looking stand-mounted loudspeakers are remarkably fast and exceptionally resolute. The level of transparency that they accomplish reveal a surprising degree of musically relevant detail, without any hint of etch, edge, graining, or glare, offering an unprecedented view into the subtleties of the performance and the ability to simply captivate you with their complex, vibrant, faithful, and engaging voice. In closing, keep in mind that any of the slight vulnerabilities in the M5's performance I have pointed out here are based on limitations as contrasted to my reference loudspeakers selling for 35 times the M5's asking price. Listened to on their own merit, they are among the most musically engaging, tonally accurate, and relevantly resolute loudspeakers I have heard in their class. They deliver their musical message effortlessly and consistently, without any undesirable hi-fi artifacts or imperfections, in a manner that allows them to compellingly sink their teeth into the act of revealing the message of the music under their care. Aside from their exquisite build quality and appearance, they offer coherent timing and pace, an infectious accuracy of timbre and octave-to-octave balance, exceptionally fast and effortless dynamic contrasts, especially in their ability to scale accurately and reveal shading and subtleties down by the noise floor, class-leading resolution and transparency, solid if not unrestricted low-frequency performance, and a surprisingly stunning and delightful degree of resolution. Do not overlook their accomplishments if you are searching for a loudspeaker in or around the $10,000 repair range. This is yet another loudspeaker from the mind of David MacPherson of Studio Electric that is extraordinarily musical, emotionally persuasive, and absurdly easy to fall in love with. In case you haven't been reading between the lines, the Studio Electric M5 stand-mount loudspeaker has earned my most enthusiastic recommendation. Well done, again, David. As always, thank you for taking the time to drop by today. Further information on supporting the channel may be found in today's description section or at my website, theaudioanalyst.com. Please stay safe and keep the music playing. Till next time, cheers.